they're not necessarily going to impact the...
But it's part of your core value, right? And part of what you're doing is discovering those fantastic projects.
Yeah, so if you think about like what the company needs to be, you know, I was drawing it more to the individual. It'd be a little unfair to say that about absolutely everybody here. But first, I like really smart products. So you know, they have to have a real reason to be. It could be, and I don't think that sensibility implies to me. It could imply an aesthetic sensibility. I'm not addressing it that way.
Yeah, we saw a hat made out of playing cards.
Oh well, the hat was the end result of the product.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Anyway, we don't really look for actually a visual sensibility in particular. If that's the company's claim to fame, that this is why they exist, of course, then it's evaluated. Like thinking of a particular product, Bellevue, it's a better ice cream scoop made by a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And it is absolutely gorgeous and ergonomically head and shoulders above any other ice cream scoop. So you have to evaluate on kind of that sensibility. But, you know, we might be working on a product that is more about the social enterprise aspect of it, or it might be more about its eco-friendly properties, or it could be really heroic because it's repatriated some manufacturing to the U.S. And you might not see it as a high design product in that way, but the business model itself is high design in my estimation. For instance, I'm thinking of a notebook whose pedigree, if you will, is fully revealed when you buy it. You get a special code and you find out which workers in which cities and how many of them worked on this. Well, that's kind of cool, right? The notebook's rather ordinary, but making it in the U.S. and giving you that complete, almost like a food ingredients label.
Right.
That's an older Grommet. That's probably 2 to 3 years old, but that was a big idea 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, nobody had done that.
And now it's become quite a pervasive idea.
It is, but we saw it first. You know, we were working on it first.
So what you're describing is resonating with us, of course, because design is not just an aesthetic; it's many, many, many things. When you think about the products that you're looking for and your own product, which is the Grommet.
The Grommet, yeah.
How are you translating or communicating the non-tangible, the non-visual parts of that business and those things that you support to your audience?
Okay, yeah, that's always been crystal clear. It did start with something visual, 2 visual things, in that I knew this business had to have this really special blend of a human hand. We were going to curate these products and associate our reputations to build trust. That's human. That's very human.
Right.
But I also wanted it to reflect that we'd be evaluating products that could range from natural products to high technology driven products. And so there are 2 sort of visual representations of that. I'm sorry, one of them's off camera, but I made that sculpture right there to show.
We'll get a picture of that.
Okay. This is before we've launched. We've got like 3 people around the table, and I wanted to communicate the sensibility of the company. And so there's this in that sculpture in my eyes, and for some other people, it had this blend of sort of wit and nature and technology, or at least manufactured, because there are grommets on it. They're really flat cut washers, but they look like grommets. And for some people, and this I'm thinking in particular, the firm we work with on our visual identity, Alphabet Arm, that worked for them. It worked for my co-founder. And when this is 2008, we're setting off out of sort of the Web 2.0 days, and everything was like green, lime green bubble type and sort of highly stylized. I remember that. You remember that? And I was like, I particularly hired Alphabet Arm because they have a huge catalog of print work and album covers. And I hired them and said, I don't want web designers. I want somebody who's going to reflect hand in this logo and this visual identity. So they did. They understood that our type is actually custom in our logo. We don't use it in the logo. We didn't like go build a font. But anyway, that's kind of a narrower focus on the broader goal, which was we had to build trust. And trust is an easily used word, but it's actually not built as a goal all that often in terms of, it takes a lot of discipline, right? Every single day we're launching a product. We've looked at 300 every week, and we're launching 5 to 7 a week. And we can't compromise, right? I knew that from day one. I knew I'd never, ever want to apologize for a Grommet choice or the way that we told its story. And so everything we did was around building that trust. And that does have a lot of design implications. It does have a lot of product implications, hiring, everything. I mean, you sort of start there and then decide everything else.
Yeah.
Are these people I can trust to make those independent decisions in the quiet corners of the night, right? That matters. They're carrying our customer and our reputation in all of those decisions. And that's how we're distinctive. And again, I think it's easier to say that. It's really hard to live that. A lot of people try to copy us, and they'll give up after like 6 months. And they'll say, how did you do this? Because the quality, that, you know, the commitment to quality that implies is real, and it takes a lot of time. And they'll just burn out.
Yeah. Just
burn out. And it is hard to get through. I mean, we're 55 people. It was hard to get through that 10-person, 4 years of 10 people stage when we were doing the work of 55 people.
Yeah.
We really were. You know, we didn't do all of it well. We do a lot of it better now.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's all the same. But
So when we walked in, you were saying you're going through the everybody's reviews right now. What do you think people would, what words do you think your team would use to describe you and your leadership style?
I would love to ask them that. Actually, that's a very hard thing for me to identify. But I think they would say serious, visionary, creative, thoughtful. I think. Go ask them.
We will, actually. Are you a planner? Do you think about the future a lot?
Yeah, I live in the future.
And how do you do that? What kind of visionary planning work do you do?
Well, I think, I mean, I don't think of it as a formal I'm planning right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about making connections, and I have to expose myself to ideas and technologies regularly to do that, to make those connections. So it means getting out of the office, it means reading, it means talking to people and being, I am applying discipline I learned, you know, earlier in my career as a designer, for sure, because you're looking at a blank piece of paper, it used to be paper, and designing the future, right? Nobody paid me to design the past or even the present, right? So I had to figure out how to get the information I needed to do that job. And to me, that always meant sort of hitting the road, pretty much, you know, figuratively and literally, talking to customers, looking at competition, looking at the capabilities of my own company. And then I think it's sort of half blend of instinct and reaction to reality, you know, the reality I was perceiving.
Yeah.
So there's that. And so today in this business, it isn't as simple as like, oh, this is my planning week, or this is a planning meeting, or this is, but I do step back every year at the beginning of the year, and I write it's called the CEO letter, and I reflect on the top learnings of last year and the top goals of the coming year. And that is probably the only formal time when I like absolutely am thinking that way. But the rest of the year, it's more, one of my investors said to me, Jules, your job is to be out there and absorbing. You've got to do that. Nobody else kind of can. They may not have the time, but they may not also have the instincts to do it, you know. So, but it's your responsibility. And that was actually kind of liberating when he said that to me, because I was in that 10-person heavy operating, even me, heavy operating phase. And when he said that, it gives me permission to do some things that I wouldn't do before.
That's good. What role does physical space play in the success of what you guys do?
Well, when people walk in here, or when they first walked in here after our move here a year and a half ago, they said, it's like a 3D version of the company. You know, the brand I knew online and, you know, through things I heard about you. I like that. That was the goal. So, you know, I was pretty personally involved in picking the space, working with the architect. I saw there's a lot of there are a lot of artifacts around here, a lot of salvage and vintage things that represent manufacturing, basically, and I picked all those out personally. So it's signaling who we are really quickly. But I will say this: I had a fear when we moved. It's a beautiful office. I'm happy of how it came out and how it works for us. But we were in very compromised space for 4 years. 2 Victorian houses in an office building, all within short walking distance of each other. Believe it or not, I had a team all spread out because we sort of grew quickly. Mm-hmm. And when we made our first hire in this cool new space, I was worried because the people who signed up in the old space weren't doing it for the space. Like, there was nothing cool about it. It was not appropriate because these were houses that had a lot of character, converted to offices. You know, they weren't.
But they were committed to the mission more than the space.
The space didn't. The space expressed quirky, you know, but it didn't necessarily have any direct relationship to us, and now we do. And I was just worried that the people will come in and it'd be harder to vet for mission. Boy, when you went to that office and you wanted to keep coming back, you meant it.
Yeah. What part of your leadership skill set do you feel like you want to work on the most?
Well, there's one I can never crack. I wish I were funny.
Okay.
I'm not funny.
Well, that qualifies. That was pretty good.
I think storytelling is so important in painting. I have 2 really weird deficiencies. One's genetic, the funny one, but one as a designer is inexcusable, which is I always underestimate the importance of pictures in painting the future. I'm really good at the words part.
And yet you